What if there was a single, elegant mathematical pattern that could explain, well, everything? I mean, from the four fundamental forces of nature and the mysteries of quantum mechanics, all the way to the architecture of AI and maybe even consciousness itself. It's a fascinating idea from researcher Jeremy Baker, who proposes that reality itself is built on this one, repeating geometric pattern. So let's explore how that could possibly work.
It all starts with a question that totally flips the script on one of our favorite sci-fi fantasies, time travel. We've all seen it, right? Heroes zip back in time to fix the past. But Baker asks a really interesting question. What if the universe itself has rules that make this mathematically forbidden from the get-go?
And this comparison really gets to the heart of it. In the movies, time travel is just a tech problem. Build a fast enough car or a powerful enough machine and you're good to go. But this theory reframes it as a computational problem. The universe isn't some road we can just throw in reverse. It's more like a massive computer running a one-way calculation. And you can't just undo the math.
So, why is it forbidden? Why can't we just reverse the universe's calculation? Well, to get it, we need to stop thinking of time as a river we can swim up and start thinking of it as the universe's operating system. One that's processing an absolutely unimaginable amount of information every single instant.
The theory points to three fundamental barriers that make reversing time pretty much impossible. First, you've got an information problem. You need to store an impossible amount of data. Second, there's a computational explosion. The complexity of reversing everything would just grow exponentially out of control. And finally, you run into singularities. These are basically mathematical dead ends, kind of like trying to divide by zero. The universe just can't compute them. And these aren't just engineering challenges, they're baked into the fundamental laws of math.
Okay, let's just try to wrap our heads around that first one, the information storage problem. Physicist Seth Lloyd calculated that the universe has processed roughly 10 to the 120th power bits of information since the Big Bang. That number is just staggering. To perfectly reverse even 1 second of time, you would need to store and process more information than currently exists in the entire known cosmos. So it's not just hard, it's physically impossible.
And this, brilliantly, gives us a solution to things like the grandfather paradox. See, the universe doesn't need special rules to stop you from changing the past. The paradox never even gets the chance to happen because the journey itself, the trip back in time, is computationally impossible from the very start. It's like the universe has a built-in immune system that protects its own logical consistency.
Which leads us to the core idea. If these computational barriers are the what, then what's the how? What is the underlying thing that enforces all this? Well, the theory proposes that it's not some set of arbitrary rules, but a single fundamental geometric pattern that reality itself is built on.
And here it is, cycle function geometry. Now, hey, don't worry about the complex formula for a minute. At its core, it's just describing a wave that folds back on itself, creating this stable repeating loop. The big idea is that this simple, self-contained pattern is the fundamental building block of reality. Think of it like a single repeating stitch that you could use to weave an infinitely complex tapestry. This one function could, in theory, generate everything we see.
So this geometry has some really key properties that make it a pretty powerful candidate for a theory of everything. It's bounded, which just means it doesn't fly off to infinity. It contains itself. It's periodic, so it repeats in a stable, predictable way. This structure allows it to build up immense complexity while naturally containing and correcting errors, making it an incredibly robust foundation for a universe.
Okay, so if reality is built from this one single repeating pattern, how does it create things as different as, say, the gravity holding you in your chair and the light from your screen? The theory suggests they're actually two sides of the same coin. Let's start by looking at the four fundamental forces of nature.
The source uses a fantastic analogy for this. Imagine you have a complex 3D sculpture. If you shine a light on it from different angles, it's going to cast completely different-looking 2D shadows on the wall. You might even think you're looking at four separate, unrelated shapes. This theory suggests that gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces are just that. They're different shadows, or projections, of the same single, higher-dimensional geometric pattern.
Now, this single pattern doesn't just stop at unifying physics. The theory proposes it might also provide the blueprint for intelligence itself, both artificial and, ours. So let's see how this same geometry could apply to minds and machines. Current AI is incredibly powerful, but it can also be pretty brittle. It's built in these layers, and an error in one layer can cascade and cause the whole system to fail spectacularly. A harmonic AI, on the other hand, built on these cycle functions, would be fundamentally different. Its mathematical structure would naturally contain and correct errors, making it inherently stable and robust, a lot more like biological intelligence.
The theory also offers a really new way to look at one of quantum mechanics' absolute weirdest phenomena: quantum tunneling. This is where a particle can just appear on the other side of a barrier that it should not have enough energy to cross. You can think of it like walking straight through a mountain instead of having to climb all the way over it. So how does this geometry explain something like that? It suggests that what looks like an impenetrable wall in our familiar 3 dimensions might actually have a kind of shortcut through a higher dimension, a bit like a wormhole. And the math of the theory points specifically to an 8-dimensional space as being the most efficient gateway for this quantum tunneling. Tapping into that could be the key to building quantum computers that can solve currently impossible problems.
So, if this single pattern explains physics, computation, and quantum mechanics, what does it say about our place in the cosmos? This is where the theory becomes really, really personal. For centuries, we've kind of seen ourselves as separate observers in a vast, indifferent universe. But this geometric view suggests the complete opposite. We aren't just living in the universe, we are the universe, experiencing and understanding itself. Consciousness isn't some random accident. It's a natural expression of this underlying mathematical pattern evolving towards self-awareness.
And this brings us to a final, really powerful thought. If we are active participants in a universe that is constantly creating itself through a kind of mathematical poetry, it really begs the question, right? What is our contribution going to be? What new patterns of understanding, creativity, and consciousness will we add to this cosmic verse?